Looking sharp there, aren't you?
Doing our best.
All right, how's it going?
It's going good. How's it going with you guys?
Awesome.
It's
All
good.
right.
Go ahead and introduce yourselves and our guest.
Right. My name's Easton Madsen, and this is Ryan Abney. We're producers on the game Natural Disasters. We have a very special guest, John O'Neill, here, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm John O'Neill. I'm actually,
There we go. We got an introduction.
you did
Perfect.
a great job. Yeah.
We also
John
have.
O'Neill,
Sorry.
I'm from Unity Technologies. No problem.
Unity, fantastic. I'm Ryan, as Easton said, and we have James playing the game. To get started, Natural Disaster is a point-and-click inspired adventure game set in a ViewMaster in which the player explores different scenes inciting all kinds of disasters via the butterfly effect. And basically, for those who don't know, the butterfly effect is the concept that the flap of a butterfly's wings on one side of the planet creates a tornado on the other side of the planet. And I also said the game is set in a ViewMaster, and this is a ViewMaster. It's an old toy. Basically, you look through and swap through different scenes and pictures, and that's how you play our game. You play as a butterfly in a ViewMaster. So.
Yeah.
All right. We got some gameplay to show?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
Yeah, so like I said, like Ryan mentioned, James is playing our game here. This is one of our first scenes. We have a museum, so we're going to go through and introduce our scenes first. As we go through, we have a prison yard. I believe next is the graveyard. A wonderful little dock that has a restaurant named Chimmy's. Our wonderful carnival. Our train station. And our pinball arcade.
Yeah, and to kind of give context to the pinball arcade, and I guess all of it, the game actually takes place in the 1950s, kind of going back to the ViewMaster and when it was popular and things like that. So.
Yeah, and we want to show off some of our pathways to you, the little things you can do to incite major mayhem. What we're going to show off first is one of our characters named Lawrence, one of the prisoners here at our wonderfully designed jail. Through interaction with the objects here is how you sort of incite chaos. We're going to be using a few tricks to try and make sure that the items are obvious to players, such as messing with color and position.
And as you can see, the player just broke Lawrence out of prison, and now he's at the museum, so he's probably up to no good.
Yes. It also points out that all of our scenes are kind of interconnected with one another, causing mayhem in one will affect how the other ones go.
Yeah, on a ViewMaster there are 7 pictures in each one, and so like the slides on a ViewMaster, our levels are all one. They're all a part of the same slide. So one thing you do in another will affect the things that happen in another. So.
Yep. Now currently we have it set so that as you switch through some of these scenes, time passes on. So for the player to find new objects, sometimes they just have to keep moving scenes. So in this case, Lawrence, who is in prison for thievery, has stolen this wonderful artifact and knocked 2 innocent civilians out of the way.
Yeah.
You might have noticed in the corner the blue book icon. That's our sticker book or our scrapbook. In it is how players will track progress for the mayhem that they cause. So you'll notice that with this pathway, you got the fight that happened, collecting the keys, the robbery, but there are other pathways to explore. So a lot of exploration in this game. Of course, they aren't the only, big interactions aren't the only thing. We have a bunch of smaller interactions that the player can mess with to create little bits of a much smaller mayhem.
Yeah, you can see James landing on the bird's nest. And a bird comes to say hello.
Yes. We have some other things, such as this weight back here, which appears our person has disappeared.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a person there, and they're dying invisibly right there.
Yes,
so,
exactly. They knew it was coming.
Yeah,
Ghost lifting.
yeah, ghost lifting.
Awesome. So, John, do you have any feedback on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I watched the trailer, I got really interested because it has a unique puzzle curiosity effect to it. I'm watching and go, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing yet, but I like the tone, I like the feeling, I love the viewfinder, and it's really interesting the way you're bringing together these interconnected puzzle systems. It's almost like, you know, a choose your own adventure sandbox style with mayhem mixed in. And some of the things that, you know, I think about in level design, how much, I should say, do you have to script versus leave experimental or physics driven? And the reason why I ask that is when I look at this as a player, I'm going to want to go around and start interacting with everything. And certain things I think you want to let happen, and others you may want to control, where you have your sequential events, you have to go between scenes, unlock A to get to B. You don't want to completely ruin it for the player, but you want to let them kind of experiment through some loss, through curiosity, not over penalizing, but you know, not frustrating either. Have you thought about that? Like, where do you balance those different layers?
So currently, you'll notice that our wonderful player Drames has killed off one of our wonderful NPCs. But when it comes to the sequential versus sort of physics space, I know that we have been talking with the designers and have talked with playtesters about how sort of we want more the player to have control over things to at least make it more player driven, that they aren't being punished for missing something and that they have those options. Now, of course, mixed in with these small tiny bits of mayhem, the butterfly itself isn't exempt from causing chaos to itself. So if we were to go, say, to Chimney's Path, you might notice that there's an open fridge here. Even certain small interactions will cause the death of the butterfly. And one of the ways that the way we sort of do our, like when you complete a path, is the world resets, and that allows you the opportunity to explore those pathways again.
Yeah, and after a world reset, the scrapbook progress will be saved to allow the player to keep track of their own progress and the things that they've already done. So
That's good. That encourages, you know, you're not going to feel you've lost progress and you may want to go back and just try something else goofy. You've got some great humor, and the characters, the interactions, the sound, those are all important, you know, to give kind of that payoff moment. You've got shadows. Now, it's interesting. One of the challenges I think you'll have is you're controlling from one fixed camera location. And that's intentional, I'm assuming.
Yes.
yeah, and
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
just out of like interest, we find right now that the game is a lot easier to play on a controller, and I think that's part of that fixed camera angle. We're still kind of figuring out what might work best for mouse and keyboard. So
Yeah, and not every interaction sort of has an animation or sound with it yet. However, we have, say, here, the butterflies just tied Lawrence's shoes together, which gives it a sound. But we're working on with the controls and with making sure that people understand, like, they've done something, to have good sound cues and some visual cues that go along with it.
yeah,
Very important, and also giving feedback when, you know, someone wants to interact with something without giving it away, but you need to provide some guidance to what they can touch to have a reaction and what's just ambient. Like, oh, okay, you hit a flower. That's not really anything that's going to do something for a level unlock, but maybe it'll flutter, or maybe bee will buzz out of it. You know, some idle interesting where the player gets a payback because they know they clicked it or they've moved with the controller, and they're not getting frustrated because nothing's happening. One thing that you may want to look at, it's interesting, you know, one fixed perspective with a lot of interactivity there were a tremendous number of hidden object style games, casual games that were released years ago. Big Fish is a company, a studio that did some very successful titles. I would look at that for research and see how they used fixed locations to control interactivity, but still provide that feedback to the player of, hey, look over here, there's something you want to do, without giving it all away. And there were tons of other hidden object games that followed that successful genre, but Big Fish had an enormous production value that put in to some of their main titles.
Yes, I believe I've played a few of them. So definitely something we should look into. So.
Cool. And I like the fact you're working in 3D, though. You can do so much more. That's one of the differences from the old hidden object. They were all 2D, painterly style, and so you've got a lot more depth. And maybe take advantage of that depth. The art style, I think, is coming together nicely. Throw some ambient occlusion. Even depth of field if you want to mess around with that butterfly as it moves in and out.
Yep.
That can be kind of fun.
That I'm sure the designers appreciate the feedback. I wouldn't have done it myself, so I definitely agree that messing around with it would give us some good opportunities.
Yeah. I was just going to say, as you can see, James tied Lawrence's shoes this time, so he tripped and fell and broke the idol instead of stealing it. So.
Yeah, and the idol broke, of course. So now the butterfly appears to be taking that all the way up there.
Yeah, so the butterfly, for some reason, stacking the idol on top of the T-Rex, and I can imagine it's going to result in a natural disaster of epic proportions. Oh, and there he goes.
Yeah. It appears we are running out of time. So thank you, John. We appreciate all the feedback you've given us and you being here. Next game, of course, is going to be Minor Scale, and we're going to show the trailer for them before they come on. So thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Cool. Thanks, guys.